What's up guys, and welcome back to another Reddit reading video. Let's get right into the stories. I saw heaven, and now I want nothing more than to sin. For full context, I am a crime scene cleaner. I'm not normally allowed to discuss my work in any means, but it's more a risk of getting fired than it is any legal trouble. And I could not possibly care any less about getting fired at this point. I might quit. If anything, I've been in this job for about 6 years now. I clean up anything crime-related from hoarding situations to violent murders. It doesn't affect me too much anymore, but I can't say it doesn't disgust me every time. It's nothing I lose sleep over by now. Though, I'm not always cleaning by myself. There's other people around, detectives, family, other cleaners. Whatever, it's more rare for me to be completely alone on the job. Really, but today, I was. It was thought to be a suicide. That's why they let me stay on the scene alone to clean. With murders and such, there's always detectives and police around. Without fail, today, I was by myself. Save for the single police officer sitting a few rooms away going through all the notes the victim wrote to himself. The scene was as gross as I often deal with. Blood and dirty gray brain matter splattered out against the wall and floor. Tiny bone fragments from where he shot himself through the skull. The body had already been removed. The bathroom examined in detail. All that remained was for me to eradicate the mess. It was eerily quiet that morning. Once everyone else had left, for a while I could hear the officer shuffling through papers, occasionally scribbling down some notes of his own. I didn't think much of it when the rustling stopped. He's probably just looking at a long note or analyzing it in detail. Then I heard a thud and a door opening. I stopped what I was doing, relentlessly scrubbing down the sink, and listened. It was dead silent now, other than the air conditioning. Hesitant, I stuck my head out of the bathroom and glanced down the hall, calling out to the officer I knew was only a good 10 feet away in the study. "Officer Parks." There was no reply. I exited the bathroom and took a few steps to the study. The door was open, and as I leaned in, I saw Officer Parks sitting with his head on the desk. His back still rose and fell, telling me he was alive. But the shallow pace said it wasn't by much. Certainly not conscious. I thought about going in and shaking him, or just grabbing his radio and calling for backup. But my hands were under several layers of bloody gloves, so I started taking them off. When I noticed an unnatural smell, I didn't recognize what it was, but it certainly wasn't a normal house scent. It was some kind of gas. Definitely not about to take off my hazmat suit mask to investigate. I instead started to look for a source with the weak lead while still struggling my gloves off. Then I heard the footsteps. I couldn't turn all the way around in time. Cold metal slammed against my skull, and I was out with no second to spare. When I found my consciousness floating to the surface, I wasn't quite sure where I was. The ground my cheek was squished against did not feel like the hardwood floors of that house, or even the carpet in the study. It was soft, gentle, welcoming. I gathered my strength and breath, then lifted my head. In front of me was a wide, sprawling staircase. I couldn't bring myself to look up any further, so I reached up and placed one hand on the bottom step. It was cold. Moving my other hand forward to the second step, I began to pull myself to the top of the stairs. The process was slow, arduous, painful, but there was this undeniable voice in my head begging me to keep going up. Finally, one reach of my left hand seized nothing. I was at even ground. I continued to crawl forward until my hand scraped what seemed to be a fence. Using it as a ladder, I pulled myself to my feet, finally looking up at my surroundings. I did not stand on clouds, but rather souls. They glowed gently beneath me, but quivered when I tried to step forward. The fence I leaned against was pearly white with quartz-like pillars that stretched beyond my eyesight. Dark veins ran through it, pulsing, as if the very material they were built from was alive. There was a heavy-looking lock on the gate that was marked with a strange symbol. It had no key or passcode, just a small hole. I did not dare look beyond the gate yet. I turned my head a little more, looking for any sign of life. There was only a little lamb, sitting asleep in front of the gate. It was the purest white I'd ever seen. Slowly, I started towards it, falling to my knees next to the delicate sleeping lamb. My hand rested on its head almost instinctively. It did not move. I scratched behind its little ears and it began to stir. Much to my relief, it was just a small animal, but any life was comfort at that moment. The lamb opened its eyes and looked at me. My whole body felt like it froze. It had such human eyes. It stared so deeply into me, like it could read my every thought and feeling. It gave a gentle baw and looked beyond the gate. I finally worked up the courage to follow its gaze. and see into the kingdom of God. I cannot truly describe what I saw. It was otherworldly, unlike anything I've ever experienced with my senses before. There are few words I could possibly use to express heaven. Awe-inspiring, daunting, devastating, a magnificent desolation, in the truest sense I could ever mean it, completely terrifying. I tore my eyes from the unseemly sight and faced the Lamb again. It still stared at me with its horrible human gaze. I looked dead into the eyes of God and wept. I sobbed, crying terribly like I never had before. My body seized up, practically convulsing, until the tears bore me back into unconsciousness. When I could open my eyes again, all I could see were a pair of shoes, someone standing in front of me. My vision was blurred, blood dripping into my eyes, but I could just barely make out the person walking away from me holding a metal mallet. He was tall and with slick black hair, and he turned to face me only once before walking out the back door. I suppose my eyes were glazed over enough that he thought I was out. I laid there for a long time. I don't know how long exactly. My head was brimming with thoughts I had never truly experienced. Violence. Being a crime scene cleaner only made me ever more against violence. But then, as I laid there concussed, it's all I could think about, what it means to sin. I thought about this blurry man and his mallet, whatever he had done to Officer Parks, what he may have done to the person whose body I had just been cleaning up. If he may come back, that was what did it. The thought he might come back and finish me off was enough to make me force myself up. I dragged myself back out to my car. Flopping down in the driver's seat and sitting there, I looked down at my hands. I was still in my hazmat suit, which I usually have to take off before I get back in the car, but I don't care anymore. I drove home, definitely not my smartest idea, considering the throbbing pain in my head. But I returned to my apartment anyway. To be honest, I'm only writing this out because I've been trying to drive the thoughts away. It hasn't helped. I want absolutely nothing more than to buy my ticket to hell with bloody hands. I should make that man pay for what he made me see. I am going to find him and make him witness what I had to. He will face retribution, and one day, so will I once again. I've been getting emails from a dead friend. At first I thought it was a mistake. Maybe someone had hacked it and was playing a mean joke. Maybe it was a weird scam attempt. Or maybe it really was Kermit. That was their name. We used to joke about how they shared their name with Kermit the Frog, even though it was spelled differently. I even drew them a picture, which wasn't very good, considering I was about 11 at the time. About that joke, I remember they messaged me the next day, telling me how much they loved it. Kermit and I never spoke in real life, or even on the phone or over Skype. We met on DeviantArt, back when that site was still kind of cool, and we talked exclusively through there and on email. They were a few years older than me, though I'm sure they didn't know it. I never shared my age, and I always tried my best to seem like one of the cooler, older kids online. We kept in contact for about 2, maybe 3 years until I was 14 and they were around 17, until they died. I still remember the week they left. It was a Tuesday night when I first realized something was off. When I came home from school that evening and checked my tablet, I had a message. I'll admit, it kind of scared me. Both of us were pretty paranoid at the time. Looking back, not really of each other, or necessarily other people, just of something, anything. It was like we were waiting for things to go wrong, like we were holding our breath. That message was different from the others. They weren't telling me about how they couldn't fall asleep because they'd read too many scary stories, or about a kind of funny, kind of sad reason why they'd been too scared to do something. It was a single sentence, short and to the point, nothing like the excited, rambling messages I knew to expect. I think someone is following me. The sentence made my stomach drop. I could tell something was different, and my mind started racing, coming up with awful scenarios a mile a minute. Are you okay? What's up? That's creepy. Are you sure? I don't think you're lying, of course. Just hoping for the best. I'm sure now, as I was sure then, that we both knew that last comment was a lie. I just didn't know what else to say. They didn't respond, even though their profile showed they were active. I guess I assumed they had the browser open while their computer was idly running, and told myself they'd respond when they were ready. And then I said, good night, and then I went to bed. The next morning, I had an email instead of a reply. That wasn't so strange by itself. We switched back and forth on the two all the time. What was strange was that Kermit had started a new email chain, rather than simply replying to our steadily growing correspondence chain. There was no subject. It just read, I think someone is following me. I got that same email every morning for the next week. I tried to respond, of course, but if they ever received them, They ignored me. It always came as a new email, never a reply. On the third day, I decided it must be some prank, a hacker, something, and responded saying I wasn't going to play along anymore, that I wasn't going to talk to them until they knocked it off, and then I tried to ignore it. On the following Tuesday, I checked DeviantArt and realized that it was Kermit's birthday. They were just turning 18. I was sitting there, fighting with myself, unsure if I wanted to wish them well or continue the cold shoulder routine. When I got the final email, someone was following me. When I reopened their DeviantArt account, it was gone. I never heard from them again. They just disappeared until last Friday. I guess I wasn't sure that they were dead. People deactivate accounts all the time, but I knew it. My arms had been heavy and my stomach roiling with the fear, the regret of a loss that I could feel in my veins. It sounds silly, putting into words, but if you've lost someone before, you know, there's a certainty before you're even told, a charge in the air, a static. You're just waiting to hear what you already know. You're holding your breath. Nothing about the email told me it was from Kermit. There was no subject, and for all intents and purposes, it appeared to have been sent from my own account. It was a single sentence. I think someone is following you. This one, though, keeps changing each day. The subject stays blank. They're all from my email, but the sentence keeps changing. You think someone is following me. On Wednesday, I kept catching my reflection's eyes. We think someone is following us. On Thursday, I tried my best to ignore the pricking of eyes on the back of my neck. Do you really think someone is following you? On Friday, echoing footsteps followed me home. I think I really am. On Saturday, I never left the house. Would anyone believe you if you told? On Sunday, I hid in my room so I wouldn't have to look at the dent being rhythmically knocked into the door from the outside. You know I can see you. It's been 6 days. I didn't sleep last night, and if the tapping at my window continues, I will not sleep again. I'm still in my room, and I can't even hide or close the blinds. Everywhere I turn, there is my window. It doesn't look like the blinds were ever even there. The glass is empty, but that is no comfort. The tapping of that hand still rattles the pain. There's nothing for me to do but pass the time, and I suppose that's why I started writing. I could celebrate early, alone, but never alone. Here in my room, someone at the window can watch, but I will never see them. While I do, it's only been 6 days. Tomorrow is my birthday. What was in the fog? Every day after work, I casually ride my bike home. Every time I always pass by this patch of woods. I always see what appears to be an abandoned farm building. I wonder to myself, is it a barn or a house? Every single day, I can never work up the courage to explore because every time stop and consider, I feel a set of eyes pierce my soul, but I can never find the origin of who or what is looking at me. I also found it really peculiar because there were no residents or people nearby, besides the occasional vehicle that passes me. The next day, I get a notification on my mobile phone. Severe T-storm find shelter. I can barely make out the words as it started to violently pour. I had to make a decision. Either ride through the storm for 10 miles, high winds, low visibility, and a chance of dying, or find the nearest shelter in the vicinity. Well, turns out I was near that patch of wood at the time. The screams of thunder sound very close, so I thought the best thing in mind was to head towards the mysterious structure and hunker down until the storm passes. As I walk closer to the decrepit structure, I can recognize that it has 2 floors due to the window placement. I push several branches out of the way as I ease my bike in through the open front door. As I walk through the front door, I can notice that everything was blanketed in a thick layer of dust. I traverse into the kitchen. Tarnished silverware greeted me on the table where lonely, untouched plates sat. As I walked back into the living room, a monstrous boom shook the whole room, knocking forgotten knickknacks off of the shelf. The shaking threw me off balance and I hit my head on the bottom stair. As I was recovering, I can hear the thunder and rain fade away, being replaced by an eerie silence. I slowly step outside and everything was conquered by a thick, dense, white fog. The black, burnt trees claw out of the earth as if they were escaping the depths of hell. The ground consisted of this basic, black soil with an occasional patch of snow. The only thing that looked vaguely organic were the brown leaves that clung to the dead, satanic-looking trees. As I took several steps outside, I can feel as if I was being watched. not by one person like before, as if I was being watched by several people. I can feel the fear almost take over my body as I slowly stepped into the house. I close the door and lock it as I hear the blood rush into my head. I sit down in the kitchen, trembling, trying to calm down. What is that out there? It's definitely not human, I thought to myself. After I managed to calm down, I thought it would be a good idea to search the once inhabited home. Find anything useful. I checked the pantry. There were a few cans of tomato soup, a moldy loaf of bread, several unopened bottles of water. Awesome, I thought to myself. I walk upstairs and open the door to one of the rooms. It was a small bedroom, but it had all the necessities a single person would have. I spot a crooked old dresser in one corner of the room. There was nothing on top of it, like somebody packed everything up. When I get finished opening the decrepit dresser drawers, I spot the bathroom door open slightly, as if the draft in the air was beckoning me to investigate. I opened the bathroom door completely, and on the dirt-encrusted mirror, there was a note. The note was secured on the mirror with a piece of tape, and on the front of it was a name, Jack. I yanked the old note off of the mirror and turned it around. Brother, I am sorry, but I have to evacuate our mother due to how unsafe it is around here. As I told you, during the day, do not search for the eyes. The bottom part appeared to be torn off. On the edge of the sink, there was a key. I pocketed the key and searched the other bedroom. It appeared to be the master bedroom due to the large size. I searched the empty, soulless room and came up with nothing. As I walked back downstairs, I started to notice the scratches on the floor next to the living room bookshelf, as if it was moved periodically. I struggled as I pushed the bookshelf in order to reveal what's inside. There was a safe. I pushed the key into the safe lock and turned. Click. Wow, it actually worked, I thought jovially. In the safe was an already loaded revolver and a box of ammo. Next to the ammo was another note. Jack, I already took the other gun, but I did not want to leave you defenseless, so I left the revolver. Use it sparingly because there is not a lot of ammo left. I pushed the note aside and holstered the revolver. I opened the ammo box and there were only 6 bullets left. I hope this is enough, I said to myself. I pocketed the ammo and decided to go outside to grab some wood for the fireplace because it was getting chilly. I walk out the back door and down the path. Luckily, all the wood was dry. As I walked back to the house, I saw something move in the corner of my eye. Accompanying the movement were the sounds of heavy footsteps. Thump, thump, thump. The footsteps get farther and stop completely, as if it finally noticed me. I can feel its cold, piercing stare strike me to the very core, making the fear boil inside of me. I ran as fast as I can to the house. I can hear my heart beating furiously. I closed the door, and as I was locking it, I can hear the heavy footsteps getting closer and closer. Thump, 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 thump. The ground shook as it was sprinting, and all of a sudden it stopped, as if it cannot go past the door. Breathing heavily, I back away from the door and plop down on the floor, heaving. Several hours later, I am sitting down by the warm fireplace, slurping some of the forgotten tomato soup. I sit there reminiscing on the events that happened while I was collecting wood. The piercing gaze, the heavy footsteps, the changed environment. Everything is so different. I wonder to myself, why am I in this place? How am I in this place? As I sat there thinking, I heard several loud bangs and the sound of wood crunching. I search for the source of the noise, and it turns out it was the door. I throw the rest of the soup on the fire to extinguish it and frantically run up the stairs. As I was running up the steps, I heard the door moan and topple over in defeat, and the footsteps get closer and closer. Stomp, 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 stomp. They get closer and closer as I push the derelict dresser against the bedroom door. Bang, shake, bang, shake. As the door is getting beaten down, everything in the room slightly shakes, heart beating feverishly. I anxiously pulled the revolver from the holster, cocked back the hammer, and pointed it towards the top of the door. The top of the door broke off and flew across the dresser. Bang, 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 bang. Followed by those 4 gunshots was an eerie silence. After what seemed to be an eternity, an otherworldly, demonic-like growl broke the silence. Whatever that thing was, starting to viciously claw through the now gaping doorway. Bang, bang, click. Before I can even think of reloading, I can feel a heavy tug on my left leg, followed by a heavily gnawing pain. I screamed as the sharp pain spread up my leg. I managed to glance at what was eating my leg, and its pupils were white, and where the white should be is a midnight black. The teeth from its canine-like maw are stagnant yellow and are about as long as my thumb. I writhed and kicked its face for a desperate but futile way to escape. Something sharp, I thought murkily. I shakily flipped my pocket knife and painfully stabbed at the creature's face. It demonically cried as I jammed the blade into the creature's face. After what seemed to be the 100th jab, it slowly stopped chewing and it slumped on my mangled leg. I dropped my knife as I can feel my consciousness wither away. Next thing I knew, in a blue hospital gown, in a bright room. I think I am in the hospital. I dazedly thought to myself. The door creaks as the doctor walks in. Joe, you are very lucky that you have been found. What? You have been missing for 3 days, so the police department put together a search party for you. They found you in the abandoned house with your leg messed up. You fractured your bone in 2 places and lost a lot of blood. Luckily, you did not need an amputation. You know what animal attacked you? I didn't know it was too dark. I thought if I tell him the truth, he might think I am crazy. Well, the house had no signs of animal or human inhabitants besides you, so what happened is also a mystery. Authorities are struggling to piece together what happened. It's as if you were not there for a period of time. Oh, and you have a letter. A letter, I thought. The doctor hands me the mysterious white envelope with no address. I gently tear open the envelope as the doctor leaves the room. Written in nice handwriting. It reads, Joe, what happened at that house was real. We are studying the effects of the time, or the place that you were transported to. We hereby invite you to join us. You will be treated with nice pay, paid leave, and insurance. Please consider. We will find you. Sincerely, redacted. If you enjoyed these stories, let me know down in the comments. And if you want to see more, be sure to leave a bang like. See you next time.